Welcome to the magical journey beyond mediocrity, where the mystical and the practical become aligned. You're listening to Meant for More, the Seeker's Guide to Success, with your host, Seeker's Guide and coach, Kristen Lloyd. Kristen guides you through mindset shifts to increase your consciousness and live your best life. So let's leave mediocrity behind and step into your magical, magnificent life with Kristen.
Welcome back, everyone, to Meant for More, the Seeker's Guide to Success. I am your host and Seeker's Guide, Kristen Lloyd. Thank you for being here and tuning in for today's show. This is episode 24 of the Meant for More show, and we are now accepting call-ins. If you want to jump on the call and get into the conversation, the number is 248-629-0921. Today, our special guest is Farra Allen. Farra holds a law degree, a master's degree in psychology and counseling, and Farra created the Atlanta School of Massage in 1980, the LifeWorks School of Coaching in 2006, and now specializes in everyday trauma release trainings and coaching. He has been doing personal growth work since the early 70s, having been trained in many and sundry modalities, including NLP, somatic coaching, and trauma release. Welcome, Farra.
Thank you, Kristen. It's great to be here.
It's so great to have you. And you have a very impressive resume in personal growth and development, having created the Atlanta School of Massage, having created the LifeWorks School of Coaching. You must be an institution here in Atlanta.
Well, I did start the first massage school in the Southeast outside of Florida, so I've been a pioneer pretty much my whole life.
That's amazing. And one of the first questions the first question I ask everyone is, this has been part of your journey to more. What has your journey been like, and how did you get to where you are in not just in the personal growth field, but what started you in this line of work?
Well, I started out like most people, going to college and majored in psychology. And, I ended up going to grad school right out of college. I went to law school. I have a law degree. I didn't really know what I wanted to do exactly at the time, but I knew that I wanted to find myself. And when I graduated from law school, I was still searching. So I knew I knew one thing: I didn't want to be an attorney. And so I started that quest, like a lot of us. What is it I do want to do? And what I found is that I loved doing massage. And my dad was a physical therapist. I ended up doing massage, teaching massage, and I started the Atlanta School of Massage in 1980. I did that school for 14 years, and primarily we did deep tissue massage. We went cutting edge, but also we did a lot of personal growth trainings for people in that program. And I became really enthralled by that. What is it to be fulfilled as a human being? And that led me into wanting to work with all people, not just people that wanted to be massage therapists. So I sold my half of the school, and I started into another quest, which led me into starting LifeWorks School of Coaching and training and certifying life coaches, which I still do. And that led me up to now into the everyday trauma work. I did the school. We've done the school now since 2006, and I'm now 10 years into it. And I've actually this is such a process, Kristen, for me and all of us who are on this journey, because it begins to shift at times, and it's shifted again for me because I've found that I've hit upon a block myself and found a lot of old traumas that have been resurfacing where I thought I had really cleared everything myself. But I find there's a whole deeper cut. And so I've become really intrigued by this whole concept of what I call everyday trauma.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really resonated with in some of our communications was you said the coach training is steeped greatly in finding one's passion and purpose. And everyday trauma clearing assists all of us entrepreneurs to clear what stops us as we go forward into manifesting and running headfirst into that which knocks us down. And I thought that was so powerful because what the coach training does is, yes, that helps you find your passion and purpose, but nothing prepares you for entrepreneurship. And as an entrepreneur, there is stuff like trauma and emotional baggage that you have to deal with as you present yourself to the world because you are your business.
Exactly. And while, as you say, while one gets in touch with their purpose and passion, also at LifeWorks School of Coaching, one begins to connect and get in touch with their vision, the world they want to see, and their mission, their job inside of that. Like, what is it they're going to do to make that happen? What's one's calling? The specificity of that. What is one here to deliver the goods, we call it. And then as one sets out to make that happen, one encounters that which begins to stop them from having that fullness and the manifestation of that fully. And so that's why the everyday trauma work is so valuable. The purpose passion work is really valuable because just by delivering the goods, one experiences fulfillment. But then in order for one to have manifestation, one needs to be able to clear, release, and move through that which stops one.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about everyday trauma as a modality and how you're bringing it into the world.
Well, first of all, I think we need to start with the definition of everyday trauma because trauma normally is thought of as something really dramatic, like if you've been in the war and, there's all kinds of other dramatic incidents that some of us have encountered. What we don't talk a lot about in our culture is the common kinds of traumas that have occurred to us. Trauma defined is any time that we experience hopelessness, helplessness, and powerlessness. So, and we experience a threat to ourselves. Now, think about that. Anyone listening to this, all of us have had that experience before. Mm-hmm. So, in actuality, each and every one of us have been traumatized. Although if you were to say that, if someone would look at you and, with crossed eyes or something like, what do you mean you're traumatized? It's like we don't really accept that in our culture and the power that the emotions have upon us. And so when we do set out to make something happen, to manifest here in the world, and we're following our purpose and our passion, and we have a mission, and we're on the path, but then all of a sudden, something hits us. Well, how are we gonna deal with that? How are we gonna clear that? And that's what my work has now been evolving into, because I've actually come up with an entire system of how we can begin to clear that trauma so that we can step fully into our power and fully into our mission and start making happen what we came in here to make happen.
I love it. When how does and I know you talked about this briefly. How does everyday trauma affect us? And what are the symptoms that people
Yeah,
might recognize?
what I mean by every day is like, uh, for instance, whatever has occurred in our lives still lives in us, almost like files, like in your computer, you know. So an environmental trigger from an NLP standpoint, someone might say something or do something, or for instance, with me, what happened for me is that all of a sudden I went from having 3 classes last year and generating a considerable amount of income and just really having a great time, to all of a sudden realizing that, hey, I really need to spend time on developing this new work. So all of a sudden, as a guy, I was not generating income, and that brought up a lot for me. So what I realized is that it would happen for me as I would go about my day doing things that I'm not so great at. I'm really pretty profound at certain things, you know, teaching, doing sessions with people. However, working in the way of business on the computer and things like that would, when I would hit a block and feel insufficient, it would bring up a lot of negativity and lower vibrations for me. So I've had to learn how to clear those because those kinds of things come up on a daily or every other day or every third day. And they're tied to what has occurred for us in our childhood and in our early years growing up, and then has gotten compounded, what we call re-traumatization, when something from an unconscious association triggers the old wounding, and then all of a sudden we're actually we find ourselves, when maybe something that happened seems to be such a small thing, but all of a sudden we find ourselves immersed in the depth of the trauma that we felt way years ago, and we're wondering, well, why am I so deeply affected by this supposed small thing that's happening? And we don't realize that the old trauma has come tumbling in and collided with our current upset, and it's causing that re-traumatization.
I mean, that makes perfect sense, because if you don't heal the original wound, it eventually comes back up and manifests in other ways, or can be, again, that re-traumatization from current events, go back to that original point of reference.
And there are layers of that healing as well, Kristen, because, you know, I've done a lot of work on myself. So I really felt like, hey, you know, I've really healed that wound. And what I found is that there are layers, just like layers of an onion, that as we peel back those layers, we find deeper cuts. And so that's been my experience. And those are the people that I work with.
Right. So do you notice that it manifests in both the body and the mind, or does it take place in one or the other?
Oh, absolutely, in the body and the mind. And that's why a lot of the work I do is somatic coaching. And Webster's definition of somatic is pertaining to the body. I mean, the body and the mind are deeply connected. But also, the Greek definition of somatic is body, mind, and spirit as a unity. And the Greeks saw the body and the mind and the spirit all connected and, not separate. We've gotten into a lot of decompartmentalization in our culture where we have separated things out, including ourselves from other people. And that's a lot of the work I do too, really, is beginning to ultimately the work that really begins to heal it all is when we start to experience our oneness and the allness that we are. However, getting people to that place, it takes interim steps. And that's the work that I do. I've put myself in the laboratory myself to go through all of what I need to go through. And in doing so, I have formulated various steps for people to walk through. And then they're able to get to that place where they start to experience that it's all good and there never was a problem and that we've all been programmed. But it takes a while to get to that place.
Oh, of course. I mean, any type of transformational work, I think, I mean, you've been in this far, longer than I have. But even with my own clients, I noticed that they want to be able to snap their fingers. And we live in a very instant gratification society where people just want, okay, give me transformation now. And it doesn't happen that way. It's really a process of unfolding. It's nurturing one's soul in so many ways, and really that healing is an internal healing, just like we would heal on the outside a wound. It takes a process to heal the inside as well. So I resonate with that. I completely get it. So what are the benefits that you've seen your clients experience from doing this everyday trauma release work?
Yeah, I'll talk about those benefits. I do want to say one thing to your point. That's a really great point that you brought out. And when I first became interested in trauma work and being able to take people in and through whatever traumas they had. I was in Belize and I ran into a psychologist there, and she told me about a training in Seattle. So I got excited about it. I went out to Seattle for a number of weekends and I trained out there with one of the top trauma instructors in the world. She came over from London, and while I was there, I would walk the streets of Seattle, and everybody had their iPhones on with their earphones set. And just like you said, they want to dial in, and they got an extra half hour or something, so they want to get enlightenment or something, right? So it's like that's the culture that we're also embedded in, as you speak of.
Right.
And all of us, all of people listening, I hope that they'll entertain the possibility of being at ease with themselves, because if they're expecting that, and upsets are a lot because of unfulfilled expectations. So if we have that expectation, just like I had the expectation, I'm just going to jump in there and make all this happen right away. And that wasn't happening for me. It was taking more time, and it's a process. And so, it's like if we have these expectations, it is going to result in an upset if we're not meeting those. And they're really not realistic expectations. So we are bound then to fail at certain times. And then the question is, okay, how do we heal ourselves? And that's really the benefit of this work, because what I've discovered is that the opposite of the trauma is unconditional acceptance and unconditional love. Now, those are easy terms to speak. They come out of our mouth pretty easily, but how do we experience that in our body, mind, and spirit? Okay, that's a whole other question. And
you are speaking to my soul right now. This is exactly, I completely agree. Like, I love these terms, but I also think as you have just said, that they're way too vague because people are like, oh, yeah, self-love. Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's easy. And then they go on about their day because they don't recognize the steps of what goes into that self-acceptance, self-love. They just kind of like nod their heads and like you said, the people with the headphones, like, okay, come on, enlightenment. Like there's not, they don't know the process. So I just had to interject and say, like, I get that because I think it's it's shared so much. I see it online in articles that I read, self-love, self-acceptance, but it's utilized over and over. But I think that people don't know how to do that. Like
Exactly.
their
And,
steps.
One real litmus test on that is, how are we interacting with other people when we get out on the highways and we drive around and someone cuts in front of us? Okay, what's our external reaction, which arises out of what I call the internal reaction, because whatever is wired inside us creates what I call an internal reaction. Now that sets off like a wick, like a fireworks. It sets off the fireworks on the outside. So the question is, if you want to know what's going on inside you, is what are your reactions on the outside? And you begin to start to look at, okay, well, I wonder why I got so upset with that person and I yelled. And then so for me personally, I start to do work on that. And I start to actually look at, I've come up with a lot of inner work skill sets for people to do. One is called the ONA, O-N-A, own your feeling, own your old belief, and then you write out what your new belief is. So you write out and feel whatever your old belief is and what that reminds you of, because all of this is tied to whatever belief systems we have that are running inside of us. And then you design your new belief, which is like an affirmation, I am, and then whatever it is you say that you are declaring for yourself. However, an affirmation isn't a whole lot of good until it anchors in to the body, mind, and spirit. So the key part to this part is the action step that one takes. And then one looks at, okay, well, what action can I create that actually is going to anchor in that new belief system? At which point one has to tap one's creativity, one's intuitive mind. I feel that we are all artists, creative artists, and that part of us needs to be developed. It needs to be cultivated. So in a way, I'm here, my mission is to really assist people to cultivate that aspect of themselves, the part that kind of senses and knows, the inner wisdom and the creativity, and come up with action steps that one can take that then anchor in, from a neurolinguistic programming standpoint, it anchors in the new belief. So once one starts taking those action steps and anchors it in, it forms an imprint. And an imprint is they've had a success in that arena. So then that starts to generate a whole new tape inside, which is what we tend to talk about as the DNA. Heretofore, the DNA was thought to be non-malleable. However, we've now come to see through quantum physics that it is malleable, and we can make changes, and we can begin to alter that blueprint inside of us. So my work really is designed around assisting people, taking them through various steps, educating them, training them to be able to do that with themselves, as well as be able to to go through the sessions with one of our people, myself or one of our people, until they get to the place where they can do that themselves. Because to me, empowerment really is the key. People only have one of us, one of us meaning somebody who's going to help them, coach them, really support them. And that's what our work is really all about. But then they're with themselves 24/7. So that being said, education really is the key, to educate and empower them in such a way that they can begin to self-regulate, self-manage, and self-coach themselves.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I think, I constantly will tell my clients, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. Like, I know we just finished the Olympics and these individuals are training physically for so long. And like you said, coaching, you have a coach for a certain period of time, you learn the techniques, but then you go on to utilize these techniques in your daily life. And if you're not utilizing these techniques in your daily life, attrition happens, right? You have to continue to utilize the strategies, the techniques, whether it's the affirmations or meditations or visualizations on a daily basis, to continue to reap the benefits. And so wholeheartedly, I agree.
You have to continue to do it also, Kristen, to reprogram, because what we have to understand is that we've all been programmed. We came in just fine. We were just really in the now, really in the present moment. And then as we begin to learn and we're taught, we become programmed in a certain way. If we do certain things a certain way, then we get acceptance, we get love. So that programming goes in very deep. All of us want that love and acceptance. So we begin to deviate outside of the norm, outside of our authenticity, outside of our true self. And all of a sudden, we find ourselves not even knowing who the heck we are. And we've kind of lost that connection with that inner self and that authenticity of who we are. So a lot of my work really is designed initially to, it's almost like unlearning the programming that took us away from our connection and our connection with spirit, with source, with soul. And so beginning to get reconnected to that is a big part. So what you talk about is so important, that we spend our days not just handling whatever is not working, but also spend our day, a part of our day. I spend every morning up until noon doing inner work, and also, doing exercise or meditation or contemplation or whatever, to reprogram that DNA that's in there so deep. And so what starts to happen is it's like a preventative medicine approach, similar to the Orientals, that you only pay your doctor when you're well, not when you're sick. So it's a preventative approach. And so we begin to look towards, okay, what can I do to be proactive, to generate a whole new me inside, deep inside me, such that when X happens out here, I don't have such a violent reaction, and that I can begin to cope with that in a better way.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. Now, how do you plan to integrate the everyday trauma release work with the work at LifeWork School of Coaching? So are you planning to integrate the two together? Will they be separate?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I've been perplexed by that question for some time. And I've gone back and forth, and that's why our website, and hopefully you'll explain to the viewers that it's still a work in progress.
Oh, yeah.
I had an old website, and I hadn't really done anything with it. I kept attracting a lot of students without really having a current website. So I am now working on a new website. But basically, what I've come to is that I am now throwing myself fully into the everyday trauma work. This is a passion that has taken over me. I have kept trying to go back to the school, which eventually I will. And I do plan to roll the school back open again. And I've already gone in and redesigned a lot of the classes and added a lot of the pieces that I've been discovering on the everyday trauma, which will be in the regular program for people to get certified as life coaches. However, right now, my focus is on the everyday trauma, training trainers. I'm first I'm designing a training now that will be available only to my graduates, and they will become LifeWorks master coaches out of doing this training. And then I'm going to roll that out and open it up to psychologists, to other personal growth workers, to other people who are out there if they qualify, if they go through the interview process, because this is very tricky work. It's very sensitive work because as one works with another's traumas, one has to be very careful to not re-traumatize that person. So
Right.
it's very sensitive. It takes someone who has the mindfulness, and we teach that in our program, someone who has the heightened sensitivity, the empathy, the ability to get in another's world. And so that's a big part of this kind of work. So really, the ideal person is someone who's been through my program, the LifeWorks School of Coaching, because we cover all of that. And you've had a number of our graduates on your program already who have spoken of that. And our program has been a catalyst to catapult them into exactly the specificity of what their passion is. So they're returned to who they were when they first came in here. And then they're actually then out there manifesting that out here on the planet, and that's really, really the key. So once I do that and get that rolling, then I also plan to train some of my graduates to also teach the LifeWorks School of Coaching. It's been part of my vision and always part of my vision to spread this work through the world. So that's really been a lot of what I still am abreast of and will still make happen.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that gives clear clear intentions to who will get certified, and also I completely agree. The trauma work is very sensitive, important not to re-traumatize the client, and so that's something that I even do in my work as a therapist. I don't have the techniques of your program, but, when dealing with people who have experienced trauma, it's a very delicate path and very delicate work. And that's something that comes up quite frequently if someone hasn't healed something from their childhood and it comes back up in a work relationship or a romantic relationship, for how someone is being talked to, it becomes a trigger. And so it's important that the therapist, whoever's working with them, know how to handle these delicate situations.
Exactly. And what I find is that in what I do in my training is I train the trainer to take that person into a place where they start to feel really good about themselves. And that's where the purpose and passion comes in, because all of us have a special, unique gift. And we have lost sight of that because all of us have also been bombarded in certain ways with what we're not, in some version of what I call not enoughness. So because we have that experience inside ourselves, and actually, if you look in in Webster in the dictionary, there are I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but there are over twice as many, if not 3 times as many terms that are negative terms than there are positive. So think about that. Why would that be? Well, it's in our languaging because that's what's going on inside of us. So if that's going on inside of us, you know, when we start to activate someone's trauma and begin to get them in touch with the what was it that happened? What feelings did you feel? What do you feel right now? And get them into their body, because I do body-mind integration work where I actually put people on the table. That's the powerful work I do, the depth work. I mean, I can do this on the phone. I can do this with people, and we'll talk about that later. But also, the somatic coaching, the ultimate is to put people on the table and have them re-experience the trauma, and at that point, anchor in the new. And that's when you really start to alter the DNA. That's the power of this work. Now, in order to do that, you need to get that person first into feeling good about themselves to a certain degree to where they can cope with and deal with the trauma. So then it's just like they're already feeling good enough about themselves to accept and be able to hold what doesn't work or hasn't worked for them in their lives, that what they don't feel good about, the shadow side, the part of us that we're shielding. And, like, for instance, I was going to talk later about this book that I co-authored called The Wounded Healers. And, we have like an armoring right around our chest, right around our emotions. And so we're afraid on an unconscious level to open that up. And I even found it with myself when I would hug people at my old school, the Atlanta School of Massage. I found myself tightening up, and I'm thinking, why am I tightening? But then I start to notice that I was actually holding myself in, because if I open and then get hurt, then it hurts even more because I've allowed myself to be vulnerable. So allowing one to be vulnerable, one actually needs to start to feel good enough about themselves and really start to feel, hey, I can explore that. I'm ready to explore that. And that's really the art of teaching this kind of work.
Yeah, the vulnerability and being open to being vulnerable sounds like is one of the first steps, because that's where a lot of people get stuck, is when they've been wounded, they fear so deeply the re-traumatization that they put up a wall, whether it be emotionally, physically, they separate themselves from others. They protect themselves to avoid getting hurt, which then when they lower that and become vulnerable, that may help them to heal the wound, but it also requires that they engage the wound. And so many people are trying to avoid the wound, thinking that, oh, it's just going to go away. Repress, suppress, repress, suppress. Right?
Right. And in fact, one of the sayings we have at LifeWorks is we're just throwing a ball out, because what's really important in this work also is that the client needs to be in charge. The client needs to feel like they have the power. Because when you look at trauma for what it is, we were powerless in that situation. So anytime the client feels that the coach, or the somatic coach, or the I can't in the state of Georgia use the term therapist, but really it is deep therapy. This work goes very deep. So anytime as a somatic coach, I look to take someone somewhere, they have total power as to whether or not they choose to go there. And they only go there to whatever degree they feel comfortable. So there's a fine art in actually encouraging that client to go there, and at the same time giving them total freedom to stop at any point. And so they start to feel that they have the power, that they are still in charge, and then that gives them the wherewithal to open and be vulnerable to whatever degree they're able to be. So people might ask me, well, how long does it take to get through this process? Well, guess what? It's totally variable, because how the hell do I know, how much that person is going to be able to open or not? You know what I'm saying? And that varies day to day. It varies week to week. It varies month to month and year to year. So, you never know. And so really it's just a process, and it is what it is. But the good news is whatever people do along these lines, they start to feel better. They start to feel more fulfillment. They start to feel more confident. Their self-image increases. They start to connect more with themselves. They start to express themselves more out here on the planet. They find themselves, making friends with the dry cleaner, with the person next to them in the grocery line. They find themselves just opening up naturally and organically. And that's really goes back to your earlier question of what kinds of benefits this work begins to result in for people.
Right. And the thing that we hear most often is, find your happiness within, connect with happiness. And again, these terms are so vague because they're used a lot. And so I think that for myself included, for everyone, happiness, self-love, self-acceptance, they're so overused that we become numb to them. Like, yeah. But then when we're able to use linguistically different words, different phrases that hit the core of what it means, people pay attention because it hits them much deeper emotionally than just happiness, because happiness is so vague. And for some of these people, like you said, they're making friends in the grocery store with the dry cleaners. They don't really know what happiness is because it's this term out in the distance. And so what it sounds like you're doing is helping them to reconnect so that they actually have an operational definition for this term.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, especially with the secret coming out, and we work with the law of attraction too, and I believe in it, but I believe in it to a certain degree because, the fulfillment and the peacefulness inside, and I like to use those terms as opposed to happiness or, feeling good all the time. It used to be my objective was to feel good all the time because, when those of us who've gone through periods of time where we didn't feel good, we want that high, even if it's a natural high, we're looking for that stimulation, that high. And in our culture, there's a lot that stimulates us. So, you know, but lately, though, I've become more intrigued by what is it to be at peace, where we're okay with how things are, because things are changing all the time, and they're in contrast, and it's not really reality that we can be at a high place all of the time. It just doesn't really happen. So that being the case, then how is it that we can be at peace? And that really is an internal journey. And that's why, I wanted to actually take people, while we have this opportunity, Kristen, on a little journey inside. And
Absolutely. I was going to ask you for that next because I saw that our clock is ticking here, and so
we
we're
can
going
go
to do.
for a long time with this.
Yeah, if you're driving, do not do this now. This is
Right,
going to be a guided visualization. We don't want you to crash. You can
right.
listen to the replay later. We'll make sure that the link is up. For all of those of you that are listening, that you are in a safe location, go ahead and partake in this visualization and take it away, Farah.
Yeah, let me ask you one question, Kristen.
Sure.
Do we need to stop precisely at 10 a.m.?
Yeah, we do. We
Okay,
do.
good. So that now that I know that, okay, you want to everybody listening, you want to get comfortable. Ideally, lay down. If you can't lay down, sit, and if you can, recline in a seating chair. And I want to give people a few moments to do that. And that's really important. And in the future, when you all start to do this, you want to begin to do this where you're all alone and you're able to make sounds, and you won't be seen as weird or something unusual or whatever. So you want to start with inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. And then let out any sound that's there and just open your mouth. So all of us have what I call everyday trauma inside. And you want to just open the space to allow that to live inside your body, inside your mind, and inside your spirit. So the first step really is to give yourself that green light where you're able to open, to allow yourself to feel whatever might be going on in your subconscious, your unconscious mind, inside the depths of your body. Good. So just keep that green light open. You don't have to think and you don't have to analyze. You just want to feel. And you want to start to breathe from deep inside, encased inside your body. And imagine, use the imagination. We all, as children, had great imagination. So we want to resuscitate that curiosity and imagination. And imagine going deep inside your body for a moment, not knowing what lurks there or lies there, nor caring to find out, but just exploring. And just allowing whatever is there to be there. Now, I'd like you to put your hand, or if possible, your hands on your heart area and begin to breathe from your heart. And imagine your heart is breathing you. And imagine dropping out of your mind and into your heart. And just imagine letting go of anything that blocks that. There might be resistance. Just allowing yourself to be vulnerable. Allowing yourself to breathe from, to live from, locate your identity from your heart space. So if I ask you who you are right now, you would say, I am my heart. I am my love, my acceptance. You may want to think of someone who you do love and allow yourself to feel that. And while you're doing that, take your other hand and put it on top of your head. And just begin to connect your head with your heart. And imagine, the creative artist that you are, that you could form new neural pathways from your heart to your head and from your head to your heart. Just like maybe when you were a kid, you had a train that went around in a circle. And imagine the circle of energy from your heart to your head, from your head to your heart. And just connect those two. And as you connect those two, imagine opening up inside to really allow yourself to feel the fullness of who you are. At the deepest level, we are unconditional acceptance and unconditional love. See if you can imagine allowing yourself to feel that circulate through your body. Just open up to the possibility. There's no way to do this wrong. Just set that intentionality and trust that whatever happens is perfect. And once again, allowing that to circulate down our body, through our various energy centers, our chakras, down into the earth, grounding that energy in the earth, going up through our upper chakras, up into the stars, and feeling, allowing ourselves to feel the acceptance
of the now, this now moment that we all exist in. Set that intention to merely feel the acceptance throughout our body, throughout our mind, and throughout our spirit. As we convey this energy outwards now and anchor this into our body, and imagine being able to come back to this. So be it, so it is. Bring yourself slowly back. Somehow we did that in 8 minutes. 8's a great number. It's all abundance. Keep coming back. I think that gives us about 4.5 minutes left, Kristen.
We're doing good. If we go over by a minute or two, we're fine. We just don't want to go over too much.
Yeah, that's fine. I sure would love to hear from people how that worked for them. If they, is there some way they communicate with me? We're done with the visualization.
So if people were to communicate, they would be able to call in on the number, but I don't know that we can.
No.
I can give the number again, but
Well, there's not really time for them to call in on the station.
right.
But,
Well, they could also get in contact with you. That was
Yeah.
the next thing that I was going to say is, let people know where they can reach you. I know that your Facebook page is the LifeWorks School of Coaching. And then do you have a personal Facebook page or a Twitter where people can get in touch with you? That's what we always do at the end of the show is say, hey, how can people find you?
Yeah, well, even though our website is not complete, they can find me on my website as well. I'm very available at this point. If they wanted to call me, my number is 404-274-2223. Once again, 404-274-2223. My website, lifeworksschool.com or lifeworksschoolofcoaching.com. Mm-hmm. My email is Farra at lifeworksschool.com, Farra at lifeworksschool.com. Once again, I make myself available to the public, and I'm in my passion, so I love talking about this. So I'm always fulfilled by sharing this with other people, and I am available for sessions. I did want to tell people that normally I charge between $150 and $200 an hour, but for people listening to this, if they mentioned they were listening to this station, I am cutting that in half. I'm charging $100 an hour for consultation, for coaching that I can do with people on the phone or in person. And also, I will have a training that I'm working on. So just stay. If you wanted to give me your email address, I would keep you abreast of when that training would be available, in case someone might be interested in becoming a everyday trauma release practitioner.
Right.
I've also got a couple books. The Wounded Healers is on Amazon. I've written that along with my Chiron Brotherhood, a group I've been with for 22 years of healers that we've been doing this work on ourselves. Also, Roadmap to Success, a book I wrote with Deepak Chopra and Ken Blanchard. And also I'm working on a book myself that will chronicle all of what we've been talking about. That's solely my book. So that's really what I have to offer right now. Once again, the school, we don't have a date right now that we're going to reopen the school, but we will. And once again, if I can just get people's email addresses, I'll be glad to keep people abreast of all of our future openings.
Yeah, that's amazing. And we had a listener say that she really enjoyed the visualization. So thank you again for sharing that. And I'm glad that you gave us all of the information where they can find you. Wounded Healers, I know for sure, is on Amazon. Roadmaps to Success, if you have a link for that, I would love to put it in the show notes following the show so everybody knows where to find you. And then I'm also going to upload this episode to my blog. So if everyone after the show is looking for it, I will also send you the link. And thank you, Farra, for being here. Thank you so much for sharing your work with us. It has been an amazing show. And that visualization was, I have to concur, it was fantastic. I'm so relaxed right now.
That's pretty amazing that we got relaxed in 8 minutes.
I know. It was like, I wasn't even laying down. I'm sitting in the chair and I'm like, oh, wow, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you again for being here and sharing your work with us. We appreciate it so much and love to see how this unfolds with everyday trauma. So, keep me posted.
Yeah, I want to say one thing in closing, and that is that the paradox that we're all in is that we're human beings and we're also souls, and our souls are evolving, and so we're connected to Source. So the paradox is how do we actually make that happen where we give fullness to both our humanness and our soulfulness. And that's really the work that I do, beginning to put together those two, because we're both,
Yeah.
We're both. But the truth is we're more souls than anything, but we're also in this human body. So we have to find a way to really make that work for ourselves and have fulfillment. And that's really what my work is really devoted to.
Well, thank you again for being here. And thank you, everyone, for listening. It's been another fantastic show. To grab your very own Seeker's Guide workbook, head on over to KristenLloyd.com and click on free gifts. Until next time, you are meant for more. Keep seeking.
Thanks for tuning in to Meant for More, the Seeker's Guide to Success. But the fun doesn't end here. Head over to KristenLloyd.com for your Seeker's Guide workbook filled with exercises to help you go from mediocre to magically magnificent.